Hey guys, Brig here. Today I'm going to go over one of the easiest and fastest ways of making gold in the game, and that is market resets. So what is a market reset? Basically it involves buying up all of one item on the auction house and relisting it for a much higher price. For example, I look at volatile water. I could buy all of these up and reset the price to 200 gold and try and make double my gold. Another example is buying all of the mats apart from the few that are already really high priced and putting them to that high price. So here, if you look, there's 7 stacks of 20 at 800 for the primal fire, so that's going to be expensive to buy out, but all the rest are on 400. So we could buy out all the rest, put it to 799, and that's called like a half reset. Well, that's what I call a half reset, because you're not buying out everything, but you're just buying out what's cheap or what's average priced and putting it to the high price. So I'm going to quickly go over a few tips and tricks in terms of market resets, because it's very easy to make mistakes, especially when you're first doing it, and that can lead to you losing a lot of gold. First up, and probably most importantly, is know your item. Here we're looking at defiled augment runes. You want to know exactly where your item's from and how you get it and what it's used for. And that can be for anything. Augment runes are a pretty good thing to reset because they can't be farmed as such. You can only get them as a chance drop from raids and then from some bags when you run heroics, caches, etc. But they're relatively rare and they can't be mass farmed by botters, say. So that means they are a reasonably good thing to reset, because someone is unlikely to have a huge storage of items or is unlikely to be able to go out and quickly farm a load. Knowing what the item's used for is also good, because you can then pick the right time to reset your market. For example, lots of people reset defiled augment runes on Tuesday and Wednesday, whether you're in the US or EU, because that's when raid reset is, that's when loads of guilds run their raids, progression guilds especially, and they want the augment runes. So a good thing to do is buy them relatively cheap and try and sell them on those raid days. Another very important thing is think about stack size. Here you see defiled augment runes, 14 stacks of 1, but a really popular way in which they're bought is in stacks of 5 and stacks of 10, and if we go down here there are no stacks of 5 at all. There's some stacks of 10 there at 400. So if you bought out these ones for say 350, you could probably reset them to stacks of 10 or 20 at 400 and make a nice little profit, because people are lazy and they are willing to pay quite a lot more just so they can easily get a stack of 5 rather than going through. The same works with more common trade mats like Fell Slate or Herbs, Starlight Rose. People will pay a lot more to get stacks of 200 just because it's a lot easier than buying stacks of 1. So if you are going to reset, you can often ignore certain stacks of 1 and just repost in high stacks, because then even if someone undercuts you in a stack of 1, it won't really matter, because people usually want to buy a lot, so they'll click on your 200 stack of Starlight Rose and they'll buy that out despite the ones being cheaper, because it's just easier. That's particularly good if you have TSM. Now for TSM, for your auctioning operations, you can tick match stack size. So that means if you're posting in stacks of 10, so here for my Legion flasks I post 10 stacks of 10, but it's going to ignore all the stacks of 1, all the stacks of 5. It's just going to find the nearest stacks of 10 and then post them for that. That's really useful, because instead of undercutting absolutely everyone, including the single stacks, it's just going to undercut the 10 stacks, and then someone who wants specifically 10 which there are quite a few. People usually buy these in stacks of 10 or 20. I also have stacks of 20 there, and it will just undercut those specific stacks that people have put up that match this size. So that's a really useful tip for TSM. Make use of the match stack size if you're posting in specific stack sizes. Another thing is know your competition. This is also one of the most important things, because there is no point resetting a market if other people on your server have a guild bank full of that item, and they will see that you've just bought all their stuff, and they'll go to their guild bank and post it again and undercut you. And you don't want to buy them out again, because you're just going to end up losing your gold that way. So you really need to have a kind of good idea about the amount of stock of an item on your server. For example, something like Starlight Rose, it's pretty hard to reset because there's so many botters and there's so many people with the Starlight Rose that even if you buy all of it out on the auction house and reset it to double the price, people are just going to go to their guild bank or turn on their bots, farm up a load of herbs and undercut you, and you can't do anything. So that's a really risky thing to reset. There's something like this, Elixir of the Rapid Mind. That's a lot easier to reset because there's so few. The only way to get them is from the holiday event at Christmas time, Winter's Veil, or get a really lucky proc from the garrison, and very few people use the garrisons nowadays, so there are very few Rapid Minds around. I mean, they're going for 100k on my server. I remember when they were going for 20 or 30k. So this would be a much easier item to reset. In fact, it looks like someone already has reset because it's so highly priced. Probably bought them up for around 40k because that's their usual price, and just reset them at around 100k. Because that's the thing, even if you reset and then someone undercuts you, it will probably be by a few gold, not a few thousand gold. If they do undercut by 1,000, that's going to be really annoying. But generally, they'll just undercut you by a bit, then you can go and undercut them again, and the price is going to stay really high. So it's not the end of the world if you reset a market and get undercut, because hopefully the price will remain relatively stable at your new price. Another really important thing to consider is how the item is created, if it's created. For example, Pandemonite is created from prospecting of ores. So if you're going to reset Pandemonite prices, that again is rather risky, because if the ore prices stay the same, people will just prospect loads and get a ton of Pandemonites at way cheaper than what you've reset at, and they'll just undercut you by a load. So I basically suggest to not undercut any item that can be made by another item. It's like a food chain, and you want to start at the very bottom of the food chain. You want to undercut the very first thing that's created, for example the fell slate. If you reset the fell slate, then everything that is prospected is going to sell for higher. Then you can probably start to reset the Pandemonite markets, etc. But you always want to reset the very first thing. Same with enchants. There's no point resetting all of the enchants on your server if you're not going to reset the Chaos Crystal price. And resetting Chaos Crystals is pretty risky because there's so many out there. But it's not as risky as other things because, again, you can't really farm them. You just get them through disenchanting. But the food chain analogy is really useful. If you want to kill a load of birds, it's not very easy to shoot all the birds. But it would be easier to burn the forest down, and then all the bugs die, and then the birds can't eat the bugs, and then the birds die. That was a terrible example, but you get what I mean. You want to focus on the very lowest denominator and go from there. So taking all of that into account, what are some good things to reset? One thing I like is the Fellwort and Fellhide, mostly because those you only get from world quests occasionally, so there's a limited supply and they're really needed, And if you reset Felwart, you can also reset Sallow Pigment, because that's the best way to get the pigments. And that means you can also reset the Tome of the Tranquil Mind, because that's how you make Tome of Tranquil Mind. So that will let you reset 3 things to triple the profit that you're already going to be making. Looks like someone has already reset, because they posted 3 in stacks of 100, and then there's a few in stacks of 5. So the reset has already happened quite recently, it looks like, because they're really high priced as well. As you can see, someone has put 9 stacks of 1, so that's just a random person. But again, it doesn't really matter, because the person who reset at the stacks of 100, if someone really wants a lot of Felwart to make Sallow Pigments or whatever, they're probably going to buy out this person. So it's a great way to make a lot of gold, and like I say, you can then reset the Sallow Pigment and the Tome of Tranquil Mind markets as well. Another great thing to reset are the farmable items that are kind of uncommon. So Primal Fire you can farm in specific locations. As I said before, it's used for Tome of Illusions, which sell really well, and a few other things. Primal Fire sells really well, and it's quite hard to farm, so in theory someone could just turn on their bot and go out and farm it, but it's nowhere near as easy as, say, the Legion Herbs and Legion Ores. So if you're going to reset mats, this is a great mat to reset, because it's hard to get and it's in demand. Finally, and something that's very common, is the Vial of the Sands reset. Now this doesn't work on super high pop servers where there are lots and lots of people with the Vial recipe, but if you're on a low pop or even medium pop and there aren't that many people who can craft this, then it's a great thing to reset. But remember, you're going to have to reset all of the mats, and there are a lot of mats. So you'll need to reset volatiles, you'll need to reset some fish, you'll need to reset true gold, all of that, because it's all used to make the vial. And you double the price of all the true gold, double the price of the fish, you double the price of everything else, and then you could even double the price of vial, but that probably wouldn't work. But you could 50% increase the price of vial as well. And like I say, if you're on a relatively low pop server, you likely wouldn't get undercut massively, and even if you did, people would probably buy out your undercut mats, so it would still work really well for you and you'd make a nice little profit. So that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed my little gold quick guide. I'm going to be doing a few more of these, just going over some basic tips and ideas which you can hopefully implement. I'll try and make them a bit more interactive, such as doing it myself as well, because I think that would be cool to see. But if you go through my Gold Cap Challenge episodes, which I've got 70 now, I've done plenty of market resets in those, so you can see how they kind of go for me. And yeah, good luck with it if you try it, and until next time, see ya!